Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 6th of October 2022, and these are the stories that we will be discussing in detail in the course of our show. We will begin with the security situation or the security lapse as far as our brotherly country of Afghanistan is concerned. The recent attacks that have created some kind of havoc inside Afghanistan as to what the security situation or the future of the security situation in the country is concerned, whether it be the attack on the girls' school that happened a couple of days back, or whether it be the attack on a mosque at the government ministry in Afghanistan's capital Kabul that killed 4 people and wounded 25 others, as per the ministry spokesperson. What is all of this pointing to? Is it pointing towards the IS? Is it pointing towards other extremist elements that are present in Afghanistan? Nevertheless, with the worsening humanitarian and economic situation in Afghanistan, this adds to the woes and the worries of the Afghan people. Will that also worsen or have an impact on the Pakistan-Afghan situation? We will be discussing that in our first segment. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the floods in Pakistan, the aftermath of that, the relief and rehabilitation that is happening from different agencies, whether it be the government or the armed forces or the NGOs, and the need for climate justice, as has been enunciated by our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Sahab or our Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab. Both have highlighted the need for economic justice, the need that Pakistan does not want to go with a begging bowl, but in fact needs justice, because all the calamities that have happened as a result of these floods are not because of Pakistan, but because of the effects of climate change, of which Pakistan is a less than minor contributor with a 0.8% carbon emissions. This is going to be our second story. Then we will be talking about Thailand and the bombing, in fact the mass shooting that has happened, in which a former policeman has killed 34 people, including 22 children, in a gun rampage in a daycare center in eastern Thailand on Thursday. For a country that is peaceful, for a country that advocates peace through Buddhism, and of course has a very vibrant tourism culture, incidents like these do prove to be a dent. This is going to be our third story. And finally, we are going to talk about Joyland, the film that has been nominated for the Oscars this year from Pakistan's side. What is good is that Malala Yousafzai, the Nobel laureate, has joined the team of Joyland as a producer, and she will be producing this and representing this award, winning because it also won at the Cannes Film Festival. But she's also going to represent this film at the Oscars that are going to happen early next year. So good news for Joyland. Let's hope that the film gets to get the award for Best Foreign Film. And of course, it's going to be screened later this year in Pakistan as well. Let's come with our first segment, begin with that, and that concerns the Afghanistan situation as far as the security and the recent bomb blasts that have happened in the girls' school, and of course now in a mosque that has killed people. What is that going to create an impact on as far as Afghanistan's already worsening situation is concerned? More in the following report.
It's been more than a year since hasty US withdrawal from Afghanistan and return of Taliban government in Kabul. While the war has ended and there is relative peace, but Afghanistan is witnessing a surge in terror attacks amid worrying reports of transnational militant groups resurfacing and posing serious threat to regional security. There has also been marked increase in militant activities attributed to TTP in parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan. Indicating deteriorating security situation, a suicide bombing has hit a mosque at a government ministry in Afghanistan's capital Kabul, killing 4 people and wounding 25. Earlier, a suicide attack at a tuition center in Afghan capital Kabul has killed at least 53 people, including 46 girls and women, and wounded more than 110 others, according to the UN estimates. The deadly attack at the Kaj Education Center in the Dasht-e-Barchi area sparked protests as female students in Afghanistan took to the streets for a third day in a row to seek justice for the victims. According to a new report by United Nations Development Programme, Afghanistan faces cascading crises and a crippled economy that humanitarian aid alone cannot address. The international community must engage interim Taliban government, as continued isolation of war-ravaged country will spell doom for lives of ordinary Afghans and will grant space to terror elements.
Brigadier Saad Mohammed, who is a leading defense analyst, joins us online. Brigadier Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Brigadier Saab, what has happened in Afghanistan, in Kabul recently at the mosque that has resulted in the killing of 4 people and the injuring of many others reminds us of the dastardly incident that happened at the girls' education institutions a couple of days back, in which, of course, a lot of girls were killed. Why is this a security situation in Afghanistan worsening? Who should we point the fingers at?
It's very unfortunate to see that, Afghanistan is facing serious challenges. And the two major challenges that confront the Afghan government today are the humanitarian crisis, the continuous economic meltdown in that country, and the second is the security situation, which has become more serious in the recent past. Now, well, one would never know who does this, but there are a number of suspects in this, and the leading suspect would be the Islamic State or Daesh, that is commonly known in Afghanistan. They are hugely anti-Taliban, and they are transnational, as you had said. While the Taliban agenda is only the enforcement of Sharia within the boundaries of Afghanistan, those of its allies are not, and those of its opponents are not. Now, IS is an opponent in the Taliban. Allah has got certain terrorist groups based on its soil, and they are Al-Qaeda. Again, it's transnational. It's the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, the Eastern Turkestan Islamic movement, which also has the transnational agenda. And we have the TTP, which is a Pakistan-specific agenda. Now, all these groups are the last few that I mentioned, except the IS, are those groups which the Afghan government allows to function on its soil. And the killing
but Brigadier Saab, I'd like to point out, sir, with due reverence, I'd like to point out towards the statements that were made some time back by the Afghan interim foreign minister, in which he said that no such group will be allowed to function within Afghanistan that would work against the interests of any of the neighboring countries. Why are such groups still present in Afghanistan?
They have to, making statements does not impress everybody. We want to see them walk the talk. They can keep saying that they said the same thing at Doha also, that they are not going to harbor any terrorist group on their soil, but they are. Now, they have links with them because they had housed Al-Qaeda earlier. They had housed the TTP also on its soil. So if they've been housing them and they had been fighting the Americans or the NATO-led, anti-insurgency operations in Afghanistan, to deal with the allies. One is to give them a free hand to operate wherever they want to. And the other is that, okay, you helped us. We would not like you to go back and to hand it over to your countries. However, we expect you that you remain peaceful and you don't, vitiate the atmosphere within the region. Now, they're not doing that. The attacks in Pakistan, continuously show that. Al-Qaeda is still active, and with Ayman al-Zawahiri living in the center of Kabul. Now, what does this point to? They point to this, that the Taliban still support terrorists from across the world. They come and make Afghanistan as their center. Previously, they also did this and they paid a very heavy price for it. But they don't seem to have learned the lesson. Now, instead of dealing with the humanitarian crisis and with the security situation, they are, more concerned with the girls' education and the segregation in the society. And we see this happening in the girls' education institution. Now, this reminds me of a deadly attack on the APS, which was also of the same type. Though there were more casualties in our APS. However, the mindset of these terrorists, the mindset of these extremists, they point towards this, that unless they are, eliminated from this area, they will continue to cause this mayhem in this region.
So but Brigadier Saab, this said, what do you feel is the security policy or the foreign policy of the current Afghan government if they are, as you say, harboring elements that work against the interests of neighboring countries? What is the ultimate aim of the Afghan Taliban government?
They seem to lose sight of the ultimate, their self-proclaimed, agent, and that is to seek the enforcement of Sharia within the boundaries of Afghanistan. That's their stated position. Now, they must now be engaged with. One of the problems is the lack of engagement. Pakistan tried its best, but they somehow stonewalled us. Pakistan tried to, help them economically so that the economic, meltdown does not occur in Afghanistan, leading to a humanitarian crisis. Now, the Afghans have to themselves decide. The Taliban government at this point, they have to decide what they have to do. We can keep talking and we can keep advising them, but if they don't listen to sane advice, then they are creating problems for their own self, their own people within Afghanistan. Now, these people can, we don't care what the Taliban do, but we must care for the, the Afghan people who are facing these tragedies daily, people being killed in bomb blasts and suicide bombings, and the lack of food, the lack of health, the lack of education. Education, they themselves stop people from educating.
All right, Brigadier Saab, this brings to a point a very important subject that, of course, concerns Afghanistan. That is the relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan. We've seen the incursions from across Afghanistan as far as security incursions or attacks into Pakistani territory is concerned. In the last few weeks, we've seen a lot of that happening from Afghanistan. Whereas the Afghan Taliban say that they are not happy with the fencing, A. B, they also blame Pakistan for the drone attack that happened within Kabul. You talked about Al-Qaeda. So when they were harboring the Al-Qaeda, one of the Al-Qaeda chiefs, and they said the Afghan Taliban pointed the fingers at Pakistan, and Pakistan was not to be blamed. This and so much more. Do you feel that whatever is happening as far as the security letdown in Afghanistan is concerned is also a result of the Afghan current government not able to maintain their relationship, internal and external?
Yes, you have a tendency of blaming somebody else for their own problems. They create, and Pakistan, unfortunately, in the last 75 years, the propaganda against Pakistan has been such that the Afghan people want to listen to this excuse that Pakistan is responsible for their. It is the other way around. Pakistan is suffering because of the problems within Afghanistan. We have made certain, we are totally not at fault. We might have made mistakes, but we must fight our for and Afghanistan who are housed in this country called Afghanistan. Now, unless Afghanistan is whatever it means. Now, I leave this to those are areas which we need not. Its borders remain secure. But the Afghan Taliban must be told that Pakistan has the means and the will to stop these terrorist activities from coming from across the border. Every day, soldiers fire killed because there's a fire coming from across the Durand line. So Pakistan now must take a firm stand. At this point in time, appeasement with the Afghan government will not work.
But Brigadier Saab, this said, do you feel that the incident that has happened in the mosque in Afghanistan, the incident that happened concerning the girls' education institution that killed 53 people in Kabul, 46 girls and women, do you foresee such incidents continuing to happen in the future in Afghanistan? Do you feel the Afghan security apparatus will be able to control the incursions of elements that are against the stability in Afghanistan?
I feel that the current mind state that the Afghan government is in, the situation is likely to deteriorate. It's very unfortunate, but that's how the trajectory seems to be progressing. Now, how can we stop? We can tell them, we can discuss with them, and that is that if you keep these terrorist groups on your soil, now these terrorists have no love for anybody. They see their own interests. And you would be surprised that the TTP also hobnobs with the IS, despite both, they're having relationship with the Afghan Taliban. Also, some of the elements of the TTP are, in consultation and in joint operations with the IS. Now, unless the Afghan government takes this decision that, if they have to bring peace, they have to engage with the outside world. They have to engage with Pakistan. They have to engage with all other neighbors. They have to engage with the United States. Now, how can this be done? Then they must, discuss the concerns that those countries have for Afghanistan because they house these terrorists on their soil. Now, once the Afghan government does not have the capacity to deal with such terrorist groups like the IS. So they have to have outside help. Pakistan can provide help. United States can provide help. Can provide help. Other countries in the world will be ready to provide.
But Brigadier
help.
Saab, this is interesting. I mean, this is interesting that you point out, Brigadier Saab, that Pakistan can help Afghanistan, the United States can help Afghanistan. But why is the interim Afghan government not asking for the help from Pakistan or from the United States of America to combat all such insurgent elements? For example, IS, for example, TTP and others. Why are they not taking the help? Is this deliberate, the not asking for help? Is there some other intention that the Afghans have in their mind?
You know, it's a well thought out policy. Whether it's a good policy or a bad policy, I think it's a deeply flawed policy. But that's the policy they are adopting. Now they have to harboring terrorists of more interest to the Afghan government. Or is these two crises that I have told you, the humanitarian crisis and the security crisis in Afghanistan, is this more important for them to resolve? And they cannot resolve it themselves. They don't have, putting people on ground with weapons and, executing a few people here and there does not solve problems. There are intelligence-based operations which must be conducted against these terrorists. Now, for that, some of the technologies that are required are not available to the Afghan government. They're not educated enough. They don't have the capacity to conduct intelligence-based operations which are, conducted with inputs coming from various, inputs. Now, unless the Afghan government realizes this, the situation, the security situation will deteriorate.
All right. Finally, Brigadier Saab, I'd like to understand something as a result of the incident that happened in the mosque. The Afghan Taliban government retaliated, and as a result of this, 3 Islamic State militants in Kunar province have been killed, and the group financial in charge, Abdul Malik, has been arrested. Do you feel that such operation against IS militants who haven't openly, accepted that they are behind the incident in the mosque or behind the incident that killed the girls in the educational institution last Friday, do you feel this will be sufficient to restore peace or to give them some kind of a warning to all such elements that are trying to create havoc within Afghanistan?
No, it hasn't happened thus far. I told you, that executing a few people here and there does not mean that that terrorist organization is finished. It has to be a multinational, multi-state cooperation, and they require some of the technologies that are available to take out these people. They are not available to the Afghan government. They don't have the capacity. So they have to seek outside help. And to seek outside help, they have to address the concerns that the outside world has with Afghanistan, that they continue to harbor terrorists on their soil. Now, unless they have to make a compromise somewhere, unless they make a compromise, they will face such deadly attacks.
Of course, you are completely right on that, Brigadier Saab, because unless and until they don't take care for such elements that they are harboring themselves within Afghanistan, they might be facing incidents such as the one that has happened in the mosque, or such as the one that happened to the girls' education institution last Friday. Thank you very much, Brigadier Saad Mahmood Saab, to have joined us, Brigadier Saad Muhammad Saab, Defence Analyst, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the alarming security situation within Afghanistan with the increased amount of incidents that are happening, that are causing the loss of lives in Kabul and other parts of Afghanistan. This was our leading segment. Our second story of the day concerns climate justice in the wake of the floods that have devastated Pakistan. 1/3 of Pakistan is underwater. 33+ million people have been affected by these floods. Scores have been killed. Scores have been affected by different kinds of waterborne diseases and other diseases due to mosquito bites, snake bites, dog bites, and so on and so forth. Pakistan is doing its utmost that it can, whether it be our government or armed forces or the NGOs or help from other friendly countries. But is that enough? Does Pakistan need climate justice in this day and age when it has been confronted with an incident that is no fault of its own? More in the following report.
Pakistan needs international finances not only for economic considerations but also to cope with the consequences of climate risks and disasters. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has said that revised UN appeal for $816 million for flood victims underscores need for continued global engagement. Reiterating Pakistan's bid for climate justice, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, during an interview by British daily The Guardian, noted that Pakistan should not be forced to go out with begging bowl to rich polluting nations after the floods devastate the country. Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto emphasized that Pakistan is looking for realistic justice for climate-induced disasters it's facing, not reparations, as he termed apocalyptic floods' greater challenge than the pandemic for Pakistan. Since 1959, Pakistan has accounted for 0.4% of historic emissions, and yet it's listed as one of the most climate-vulnerable places in the world, according to joint findings by the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. Earlier, Amnesty International called out wealthier states that have responsibility for climate change and urged to remedy historic injustices and support the low-emitting countries like Pakistan after deadly floods have shown the devastating impact of climate change. The loss and pain of flood victims' families in Pakistan is irreparable, and support from our global partners shall be vital for rescue and rehabilitation of the flood victims in Pakistan.
Now, of course, as you very well know, the effects of these floods has been devastating. 33 million plus people have been affected by it. 1/3 of Pakistan is underwater. And then the diseases, the different kinds of diseases, waterborne and otherwise, that have affected those people that are there. The scores of women are pregnant and are about to give birth either right now or in the weeks ahead. And they need the necessary equipment, the necessary sanitary pads and the maternity aids in order for them to deliver properly and under the proper sanitary conditions. This is very important. And the children that have been affected by malaria, by dengue, by other waterborne diseases, by dysentery, in Sindh alone, in Balochistan, we've had scores of incidents of such children who've been affected by this. Then the educational institutions, the medical facilities that have been completely destroyed by these floods, the livestock that has been completely destroyed, the crops that have been completely destroyed. Pakistan is faced with a multifaceted aspect as far as the result of these floods is concerned, whether it be on the economic front, whether it be on the humanitarian front. Pakistan is confronted with a lot of challenges that it cannot take care of on its own. That is why our Prime Minister and our Foreign Minister on different fora have been talking about climate justice, of economic justice, that under the current circumstances, especially because of floods that are not because of Pakistan or have no doing of Pakistan, but in fact are a result of climate change, are a result of the carbon emission that many of the rich countries across the world have been emitting, whereas Pakistan has only emitted around 0.8% carbon. Despite that, but Pakistan and countries like Pakistan are bearing the brunt of the effects of the climate change. This is what the responsibility of those countries who are emitters, major emitters of carbon, is, that they need to have those countries that are in need. Not only do we need climate justice, but we also need more than the help that is being given by the different countries. And now we've had a lot of countries that are sending in aid through the different aircrafts that are coming into Pakistan since the last few weeks. More than 100 aircrafts from different countries, friendly countries, have come with the aid that is necessary. Also, there are pledges of help to Pakistan. The United Nations also very recently pledged $816 million US as far as the help for Pakistan under the current circumstances is concerned. But the fact remains that between pledges and the actual aid that comes to Pakistan, there's a huge difference. Even the last time when the United Nations had pledged around $160 million US, the aid had not the actual aid that was given by countries was not sufficient to even meet the criteria of 160 million. Now that the pledge is that of $816 million US, we will see in the days to come how the different countries react. Nevertheless, countries like the United States of America, countries like the European Union are, in fact, regions like the European Union are pledging more and more as far as helping Pakistan is concerned, and Pakistan is quite thankful for that. But Pakistan needs much more. The actual estimate of the aid that Pakistan needs for relief and rehabilitation once the floods are over and the water recedes is around 30 billion plus US dollars. Will the world get together to help Pakistan with this 30 billion plus US dollars is something that we will see in the days to come. Also, what is very important is debt rescheduling as far as Pakistan is concerned. Pakistan has contracts with the IMF and other agencies. It is also up to these agencies to understand the plight that Pakistan is currently confronted with and do the needful as far as how Pakistan can, or how the debt that Pakistan has taken from these different organizations can be restructured in such a way that Pakistan can take care of its own calamities and the effects of the calamities before paying back these important organizations such as the IMF. Also, our Prime Minister has talked to the British Daily Guardian, in which he has highlighted the need for help and aid from different countries. But he said that Pakistan cannot go with a begging bowl everywhere. In fact, this is climate justice that Pakistan needs. Pakistan is not begging for help. Pakistan is asking for something that is no fault of its own. And that is the basic reason because of which the world needs to get together and help Pakistan in this time of need. Our Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab also addressed the media recently, and in a media briefing said that the government is looking into the economic consequences of the floods as well as the food insecurity issue, while a second catastrophe, the health crisis, also looms. The World Health Organization has also talked about the second catastrophe that is related to health that is going to consume Pakistan, because there are so many diseases, because of the lack of sanitation, because of the lack of proper food, clean food or clean water, that a lot of diseases are going to be confronted by those people who have been affected by the floods, and the number is staggering. The number of 33 million plus, just imagine if a huge percentage or even a small percentage of that gets different kinds of disease, how will the government be able to cope with that? Because the number is nevertheless staggering. We have been joined by Javed Hassan, economic columnist. Javed Hassan Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Climate justice, how important is it for Pakistan now that it is confronted with a huge calamity in the form of the floods?
It is critically important. Not enough can be said about it. Pakistan is one of the lowest contributors, as we have said a number of times, in terms of carbon emissions. Yet, in terms of the global climate change, its impact is dramatic on Pakistan. We have just had some World Bank figures released today. Our growth figures will go down from a projected 5% to down to 2%. Agricultural growth will go into negative, minus 1%. Industrial growth down to about 2%, and services growth also contracted. We expected to see our fiscal deficit to expand to about 7% and our primary deficit to about 3%. So it's all extremely dire. So all our macroeconomic balances, which the government has taken considerable effort to do by increasing petroleum prices, tariffs, those will be all offset by one major event, which is a global climate change event.
You know, Javed Saab, the fact remains that we are diverting a lot of money from other sources, even those, the money that we had put in for combating climate change, into helping those people who have been affected by the floods, which puts us into a very strange situation as far as combating the effects of climate change in the future is concerned. When you look at the world and the fact that climate change and the effects of climate change, such as these floods, are not a fault of Pakistan and in fact the fault of major carbon emitters, do you feel that the world feels that responsibility? Do you feel that the world is going to react properly in due time before it's too late for a country such as Pakistan to combat the effects, whether it be in the form of economic instability, food insecurity or disease?
I have to say the language used has been very positive in the United Nations. There's been a lot of sound and support in that way, but the practical support so far has been really very short of what the sound has been. So it's been disappointing, I would say. The UN fund initial relief was about 160 million. That too didn't happen almost, one would have expected. It's paltry sum, $160 million. That too took some time before it was completely fulfilled. Now the UN has increased it to about 800 million. Again, considering the amount of damage that has been done to the economy and those areas specifically which are flood affected, the estimates range anything from 25 billion to 35 billion. I think the latest government estimate is about 28 billion. Uh, the numbers that have been committed by various countries, including the UN, are really paltry. So I think the actions do not match the rhetoric, and that is quite worrying. And there may be several reasons for it, but I'm afraid Pakistan needs to make a much more strong case for now for the action to live up to what has been said in
Javed
many
sir,
places.
when you talk of a strong case that Pakistan needs to make, it has already made a very strong case through our Prime Minister, through our Foreign Minister, through the different meetings or through the different debates that both these excellencies have had on the different fora internationally. But seeing the financial cost of climate change for Pakistan because of these floods, what do you feel should be the sustainable roadmap for the future so that Pakistan can combat this multifaceted damage caused by these floods in Pakistan?
First, I think we need to see what we can get in terms of grants. We really should not be looking for loans because our debt sustainability level is already quite challenging. So we should be asking various multilateral agencies. Right now is the time to look for to be giving grants, not loans, and that should be expanded, and that should take into account the fact that the damage that has been done, both in terms of immediate damage and what is in long-term damage, needs to be addressed. So we should be looking in terms of at least 5 to 10 billion in the very short term. Now, how we do that is obviously what needs to be done is to be very clearly elucidate what kind of damage has been done, and then we need to be able to also tap into the various global funds that are available now. One of the things that I've been looking at, and it's a bit disappointing. There's something called the Green Climate Fund, which is under the UN aegis, and that has something like 8 billion of confirmed funds in it. Yet in Pakistan, only 131 million has been devoted. Now, Pakistan seems like a perfect recipient for that kind of funding. Then obviously there should be much more bilateral lending and grant awarded. As I said, lending should be the last thing we should be looking at. On the debt side, what I'm disappointed to hear is that there's the talk of debt restructuring, which was taking place earlier. That seems to have been set aside for the moment. I again think we should make a case for debt restructuring. IMF had promised that they are looking at a fund of 100 billion in terms of climate affected countries. Now, 100 billion, Pakistan should be again a major recipient of that kind of fund whenever it comes to being. So we should have projects, we should have clearly delineated areas where we need that funding. We need to get our groundwork in place and then go to various countries and say, look, this is how we need to, because really there's no other way the country can both meet its current fiscal expenditure and yet take care of the climatic disaster that has been heaped upon us.
All right. Speaking of the different fora on which Pakistan can ask for international help, and you've talked about various different mechanisms through which Pakistan can benefit from in the current situation. How much do you feel an institution like COP, like we're going to have COP27 next month, and the G77 can also help Pakistan?
Well, the fund I talked about, which is the Green Climate Fund, that came about as a result of COP. That would be the perfect forum where Pakistan should make a strong case for why there should be a significant amount of funding which is available there. There's confirmed not most of it is not being utilized. That a major chunk of it should be devoted towards Pakistan. Similarly, there are other global climate funds that are available that we should be looking to tap into. But what we do from our side, what we need to have is clear adaptation and mitigation measures. Now, there are two different things. Adaptation is what where we are affected in terms of climate change. How do we make our projects, our places more adaptable to that climate change? And then there are mitigation, which is obviously to avoid adding to climate change. Our focus has to be obviously on adaptation, and we need to see how we get funding for that.
All right, Javed Sahab, also, climate groups across Africa and Middle East are also campaigning for climate justice for their own countries. Do you feel Pakistan can also cite their example or understand how they are moving across as far as climate justice is concerned to also strengthen their case?
I think, look, we have to work together rather than work at cross purposes. There is, by and large, developing countries have been hard done by. These countries have a common cause in this. Rather than trying to undo each other, I think there should be a strong case for cooperation and trying to maximize what all of these countries can get from the more developed economies.
All right, Javed Sahab, also, in all of this situation that Pakistan is currently encountered in or with, how much is the role, or how important your fact is the role of the academia, of the media, whether it be national, whether it be international, to highlight Pakistan's plight?
I think, as in all things, the role of media can never be understated. I think what you're doing, what other channels should be doing, what much more of our newspapers should be doing, is really making this among the top of the mind issues, not only nationally but internationally. Unfortunately, over the last week or so, I've seen it really diminish in terms of top of the mind issues in Pakistan itself, so let alone the world. We really need to campaign to make this as top of the mind issue, especially with, as you were mentioning, the spread of diseases that is now happening. So there'll be multiple layers of different kind of calamities that are facing the poor people affected by floods. So we need to really make sure that this remains in the public view. In terms of academia, in terms of having detailed analysis of where the climatic change effects is taking place, what the adaptation measures should be taking place, how they can be most effectively put in place, and also not only academia but the business community as well as the financial community in terms of how much it'll cost. So there should be some credible costing for these adaptive measures that will be taking place. So I think that there's a cohort of people that need to, or groups that need to work together and present the strongest case that is possible for Pakistan.
All right. Speaking of presenting a case for Pakistan and also other countries that are affected by climate change, and speaking of climate justice, do you feel the whole concept of climate justice is going to create a rift between the global north and the global south as far as their perspectives are concerned?
I think there will be some tension. It is inevitable that when you ask a certain body or certain group of people for effectively reparations or funding, there's always tension in that. But I think this time round, there's a strong voice even in the developed economies in IMF, in World Bank, in United Nations, in OECD, that there is a certain degree of unfairness. So what we need to see is that this doesn't become an antagonistic affair. Rather, that this is a one where we draw upon the initial sympathy that has been expressed by many of these organizations and countries, and see that this translates into real funding rather than just words.
All right. Finally, Javed Sahab, looking at the current state of Pakistan's economy and the plight that Pakistan is currently encountering, How optimistic are you as an economic journalist, as somebody that understands climate change and Pakistan's economy, of the help, of the actual help in numbers that Pakistan might or will get from the international community, the international organizations, the Green Fund, G77, COP, and so on and so forth?
Okay, this is a tough question you ask me. I'll be honest here. I think of what we need, which is probably in the billions, in the tens of billions, we probably will get about 15 to 20%. So hopefully over the next year or so, a couple of years, we will end up getting about 5 to 10 billion. I'd be surprised if we get the 25, 30 billion that we are hoping to. In fact, what we need is something like 70, 80 billion over the coming years. But I think we will get something. I think there is a realization. Just recently, ADB announced it's going to project finance to the tune of something like 2.5 billion. I think there's much more of that will come from World Bank, and then there are obviously other agencies. Hopefully, it's in the tune of 5 to 10 billion. Much more than that's needed.
All right, but let's hope that the realization comes to the world and to the important countries, and Pakistan gets much more than what you anticipate Pakistan will be getting. We are in need of that, and Pakistan cannot, cope with the effects of climate change in the form of the floods and the devastation that Pakistan is encountering all by itself. No matter how much Pakistan helps itself, it will be needing the help of international bodies, of international organizations, and the important countries across the world. Thank you so very much, Javed Hassan, Saab economic columnist, to have joined us, to have talked to us about climate justice, the need for climate justice for Pakistan in the wake of the dastardly floods that have affected Pakistan, its economy and its people. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first is from Thailand, where a former policeman has killed 34 people, including 22 children, in a gun rampage at a daycare center in eastern Thailand. This happened today. He then shot dead his wife and child at their home, and then he turned the weapon on himself and killed himself. Incidents such as these in countries such as Thailand are a sad reminder of the fact that such incidents can happen in any country across the world. We've seen a lot of that happening in the United States of America, and now we are seeing this in Thailand, that is a major economic and tourism hub as far as the world is concerned. Now, the attacker, ladies and gentlemen, was a former member of the police force who had been dismissed from his post last year over drug allegations. Whether what happened was a result of the drug allegations or the fact that he was taken off from his post, we will get to know in the days to come. Nevertheless, it's a very, very sad day for Thailand, for all those parents who've lost their children, and for Thailand in general as well. We are there for our friends in Thailand, and we will pray for the children who've lost their lives and their parents as well. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, we'll end on a slightly positive note. The film Joyland, the Pakistani film Joyland, that created furor across the world in a very positive sense, whether it be at the Cannes Film Festival, where it got 2 major awards, or whether it be the fact that it is now nominated from Pakistan's side in the Best Foreign Films category at the Academy Awards, otherwise known as the Oscars. Now, what is good and heartening is the fact that Nobel Prize laureate Malala Yousafzai has now joined the team of this award-winning Pakistani film Joyland, that is now nominated for the Academy Awards, and she has joined in the category of producer along with the other producers of the film. She says she is extremely proud to support a film that proves Pakistani artists are among the best in global cinema. She said this while being interviewed by Variety magazine. Now, all hopes are now on Joyland. Pakistan has not had a success as far as the Academy Awards are concerned in the foreign films category, but a film like Joyland might prove to be that little change as far as for the positive as far as Pakistan and the Academy Awards are concerned. So all hopes are pinned on this film, and the Academy Awards, of course, will be held earlier in 2023. So all the best to the team Joyland, all the best to Malala Yousafzai, and I hope that your campaigning might prove beneficial for Joyland. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. As I always end my show with, do help those brethren who are in need because of the floods any way you can, whether it be by sending a text message to 9999 and contributing 10 rupees, whether it be by helping our armed forces, whether it be by helping the NGOs or the other philanthropists that are helping all those in need. But do help those in need. That is how you can strengthen our country, Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.